Welcome back, champs. This is the official EggFooty tipping competition round 17 predictions. Now, I do apologize for not getting the tipping video out last week as I had a couple issues with my microphone and I couldn't get them sorted out in time for a video, so I do apologize about that. I put them up on my community tab, but I understand that's not the same. Luckily, we got them sorted out just in time for next week, which is this week now. First week of no buys was a pretty interesting one. We had some big moments happen over the week. Me personally, I had a pretty good week of tipping. I'm going to put them up on screen right now. I got 8 out of 9, and the only one that let me down was the GWS and Melbourne game, but I'm not too worried about that. I'm very happy that the Giants won. I thought we were going to see upset of the year against St Kilda, which would have taken that title away from Hawthorn beating Brisbane a couple weeks ago, but you know, I guess we can't have everything. Now, let's have a look at the top 10. Top 10's on screen right now. Hats off to you if you're going alright. Remember, we got some good prizes up for grabs as well in the tipping competition. Me personally, I'm doing alright. I've gone back up to 129. I'm kind of marinating in the low 100s. Hopefully, I can have another good week and keep pushing for under 100, maybe 99, 98, something like that. We got another big week of footy coming up, so without further ado, let's get into the round 17 predictions. Thursday night at the MCG, Richmond are going up against Sydney. Now, even though popular vote is in favour of Richmond, I am going to back in Sydney to get up against Richmond. You know, given how they got beaten down by my Lions last week, I think Richmond are going to drop a little bit in form. And you know, Sydney did choke a win against Geelong last week, but you know, if Sydney kick a little bit straighter, they win that game easily. So, you know, I do think the Swans are starting to improve a little bit. As for whether or not they'll be able to translate that into a win against Richmond this weekend, we'll have to wait and see, but I've just got a feeling that Sydney's going to get up against Richmond. Friday night footy at Marvel Stadium, Western Bulldogs taking on Collingwood. Now, as good as the Bulldogs were against Fremantle last week, I am going to back in Collingwood because, you know, they're at the top of the table, they're playing good footy. They beat down the Gold Coast Suns last week. They're in pretty good form. They're good players, well, playing good. And I think it's going to be a bit too much for the Western Bulldogs, who are admittedly playing some good footy. I think at the end of the day, these teams are on different levels just in terms of their game plan and their personnel. Saturday Arvo at the Gabba, we've got Brisbane Lions taking on the West Coast Eagles. Now, I have to back in my Brisbane Lions, obviously. You know, it's West Coast. I am actually a little bit nervous for this weekend because, you know, St Kilda are only 2 games below us on the ladder and they almost lost to West Coast. They were down by 30 at one stage. So, you know, the West Coast are starting to resurrect a little bit. And I think Brisbane can't go into this asleep or expecting a win. They have to treat it like a final and they have to give it their all, because if we lose to West Coast, then season over. Saturday twilight at Giant Stadium, GWS taking on Hawthorn. Now, I am going to back in GWS to get up against Hawthorn because they had a terrific win against Melbourne last week in the wet, and in comparison, Hawthorn got flogged by Carlton at the MCG. GWS are starting to find a little bit of form and maybe they can make a push for the 8. I think they should have no trouble in taking down Hawthorn in this game, however. Finals isn't really a priority yet. It should be just one game at a time. Saturday night at Marvel Stadium, we've got St Kilda taking on Melbourne. Now, both these teams are in a little bit of a form slump at the moment. St Kilda dodging a bullet against West Coast and Melbourne going down to the Giants. I think this will be a closer game than people think. And you're going to think I'm a bit crazy for this, but I'm actually going to back St Kilda in against Melbourne. I've got a bit of a feeling about the Saints at the moment. Maybe Ross gives them a bit of a kick in the bum and they get up. I don't know. I've just got a weird feeling that we might see a bit of an upset here. It's hard to explain, but I am going to back in St Kilda to get up against Melbourne. Meanwhile, at the same time, we've got Port Adelaide taking on the Gold Coast Suns at the Adelaide Oval. Now, I am going to back in Port Adelaide to get up against Gold Coast, just because, like, on recent form, you know, Port Adelaide had a great win against the Bombers after the siren. Gold Coast got flogged at home by Collingwood. I think the wheels are starting to fall off a little bit for Gold Coast, which sucks, but, you know, that's Gold Coast for you. Yeah, I don't think this game's going to be very competitive at all. Port Adelaide should have no problem at all. Sunday Arvo at Goomba Stadium, Geelong and North Melbourne. Now again, same as the last entry, I've got Geelong getting up against North Melbourne. Shouldn't be competitive at all. Geelong should get home very, very easily, even though they have kind of struggled the last couple of weeks. Another Sunday Arvo game at Marvel Stadium. We've got Essendon taking on Adelaide. Now I am going to back in Essendon to get up against Adelaide because, you know, as heartbreaking as the loss was last week against Port Adelaide, they were able to compete with a top of the table Port Adelaide side who have won 12 or 13 games in a row. So if I'm a Bombers fan, I'm pretty happy with that. It took a once in 100 kick to take his down, so you can't fault the effort. And you know, Adelaide don't really travel that well away from home, so I think Essendon should be able to bounce back against Adelaide and give themselves some breathing room in the top 8 perhaps. Finally, at Optus Stadium, we've got Fremantle taking on Carlton. Now, even though Carlton had a great win last week against the Hawks, I am going to back in Fremantle to get up because it's a home ground, it's their advantage. Even though they lost against the Bulldogs last week, Carlton were facing substantially easier opposition than Fremantle, and I think we should see Fremantle bounce back against Carlton. And there you have it. Do you think these tips are good? Do you think these are bad? Do you think I'm a fool? Do you think I'm a genius? Let me know in the comments down below. We got the round review coming out tomorrow. I've got the next entry in the Gold Coast series coming soon. I've also got some other videos as well, which are pretty cool. I'm going to start planning my end of season content as well. I'll keep you posted on that. And before I let you go, I'm going to give a big shout out to our tier 3 channel members, Sharksray, Big Mac Jon, Matty McDarts, Onborne VODS, Stoody sucks at AFL 23, I sharpened the pencil in my bum and now I need a bandaid, I predict Port will beat my Lions in the 23 AFL Grand Final, and finally, I suffer from erectile dysfunction. These are our tier 3 channel members. And if you want to join in on the fun, make sure you get amongst the tier 3 channel options as well as the tier 2 and tier 1. I've got some good members only stuff coming your way, so be prepared. And with that, I'll see you tomorrow.